book world, The Great Escape. I am author CJ Peterson. I co-host, if I point the right direction, yep, is author Michael Scott Clifton. And down below we have author Savvy Loy with her new release coming that just came out on the 15th. But we'll get to that in just a second. And Mike, how was your week?
Well, it was an interesting one. The We have a early freeze, and as you know, I'm a avid gardener, and I have a lot of plants that I have to put inside my greenhouse. And so I spent most of the last 2 days moving plants into the greenhouse a month early because typically we don't have a freeze until about the middle of November. So that's what I've spent most of this week so far doing. And this weekend, I'll be at the Melanie and I will be at the Cowtown Comic Con at the Will Rogers Center in Fort Worth. But best of all, we'll be staying with my daughter and son-in-law and our grandson Jace, which we haven't seen in a couple of months. So we'll be staying with them, Cleburne, which is close to Fort Worth. So we get to kill two birds with one stone. So meet readers, sell books, and get to hang around with my kids and our grandson.
Awesome. So do you have anything exciting coming up?
Beside the Cowtown Comic Con. Okay, next Tuesday, I'll be on the Cursed Dragon Ship. 20 questions.
I was just on there last night. She is sick.
So that'll be at 8 o'clock, 8 o'clock a.m. And so I've got those two events to look forward to, and as well as our weekly Book World broadcast.
Awesome. Well, as I just said, did the whole Cursed Dragon Ship where it's 20 questions with your favorite author last night. It was me and Kelly Lynn Colby. And like I said, she is a kick. It was live on Twitch. Yeah. It will be on YouTube on Friday. So I'll be happy to share that sucker around. But it was fun. She's always a treat. I told her, I said, I had to describe her to my daughter. And I said, Kelly is like putting Red Bull in your coffee. That's how she operates and functions.
A perpetual motion machine.
Yes, and she's a trip. She's fun. But yeah, it was a great time. Totally enjoyed it. Totally would recommend it. Any authors? It's 20 questions with your favorite author, put out by Cursed Dragon Ship, and Kelly Lynn Colby, who we had on, I believe, a couple weeks ago, is the one who runs it, and she is awesome. For me coming up, yes, Texas Sisters Press is always busy. The annual holiday anthology, I have it. The new one in my hot little hands right now. It's the new release. It's coming out November 3rd. Let me verify that date real quick November 3rd at 6 p.m. Central Time. There is 11 authors. Each author is bringing a giveaway. So you can actually watch, comment, be entered in for the giveaway. Each author, like I said, all 11 authors are bringing a prize, as well as a huge family pack grand prize. So it's going to be super fun. November 3rd at 6 p.m. Central Time. Mark your calendars, and I will share the link later in one of the other podcasts. But yeah, super fun. I love it. It's a great way to kick off the holiday season. I love it. We always have, so far we've done 3. This is our 3rd. We've had a brand new unpublished author in every single one. So totally enjoy it. And then there are some extremely, seasoned authors is how we'll word it. Seasoned authors that are in it too. So it's fun. I love it. And it's one of my highlights of the year. I enjoy doing it. So, but other than that, for the Con Hour, we'll be doing Celtic Christmas weekend for Texas Ren Fest on Thanksgiving weekend. Otherwise, our year is done for traveling. So Miss Savvy Loy, how are you?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Congratulations on your new release, first book.
Yes, well, first published book. I have 2 completed books, but the publisher said we probably need to not touch those yet. So they're sitting on a shelf, but this is my first published work, yes.
Awesome. So you write dystopian fiction. Can you explain to those who are watching what is dystopian fiction?
So I'm actually a multi-genre writer. I write across multiple genres. I have a children's book coming out in December that actually the synopsis to it is hidden inside this book. Inadvertently did that, but dystopian is one of my favorite to write. And dystopian is basically like an alternate society. Something happens catastrophic with the world typically, and so some new world order, new government, new somebody tries to set up a new world in a certain way, and you have to follow those guidelines. So it's basically like a different perspective of the world.
Okay. And how does that differ from just apocalyptic, or is that the same thing?
No, it's you can use any word, either both of those interchangeably. So with dystopian, though, I think you see a lot of difference is the type of dystopian. There could be zombies, there can be there can be chemical dystopian where it's with the plagues or chemical warfare. Mine's more modern dystopian or technological dystopian. It's like actual like, oh wait, this could happen right now, like in the U.S. today. So.
Mm-hmm. So where did you get your idea? Like, how did you get your idea for this particular book?
I had a dream, really. I have very vivid dreams, full color details, and I ran a Christian school for 11 years, and I would always say to the kids, guys, I had a dream last night, and they would roll their high school kids, they'd roll their eyes. Oh, Miss Savannah is going to be crazy, and it's always crazy. But this one, I woke up, same thing to my husband, honey, I had a dream last night. I started telling him about it. He said, babe, that's a book. And I was like, no, it's not a book. He's like, it's a book. So kind of my whole prologue was the dream. In fact, when you read the prologue, that's exactly what happened in my dream, pretty much. So
Very cool. So this is your first one. How has the first leap into the publishing world been?
Terrifying. So when you go into something like this, you realize that there's so much you don't know. Being an avid reader meant absolutely nothing when it came to being an author, really. So I mean, just from deciding which type of publishing you want to do, because I did with my other book, I tried traditional publishing for over a year. And after feeling like, an utter failure, so I just started branching into I did courses online to figure out what publishing would be right for me. So once you get into the publishing, that's its own animal. And then there's a curse word called marketing, it starts with the letter M. And that's been its own journey. So I tell
it's kind of right there with synopsis. They're kind of go hand in hand with the evilness. Yeah.
Yeah. And I pretty much, when everybody asked me, what's the hardest part or the easiest part? That's the writing. The writing hands down was the easiest part of this entire process for sure. So
hey, if you're making stuff up, of course it's the easiest part.
Yeah. So
exactly. Mike.
Oh, so Savvy, so this is your first book. And you kind of described a little bit about your journey there. So if there are any aspiring authors out there, any thinking about jumping in or trying to get their own book published, what are some things that you learned, a few tidbits that you learned that you wish you had known prior to getting your first book published?
So I wish, honestly, I would have done a little bit more research on exactly what you need to be successful, because I think being a published author, no matter how far it takes you, I feel like is a huge accomplishment. And there's easy way. And I feel like there's levels of publishing. There's, hey, I published a book, or hey, I'm publishing a book and I'm trying to sell it to lots of people. And so I wish I would have done a little bit more research about what my goal in mind to be as an author, all the steps it would take to get there. Because I'm hard work is fine, but I wish I would have studied a little bit more on exactly what it would require from me. And then I would say that what I should have done is I should have gotten me a few people outside of my family that could be ARC readers or beta readers that could help me with editing. Because even though I paid for an editing team and I edited over and over and over, there were still so many mistakes that came out with that first draft, like when it was like live, and I ordered books and realized, wait, there's mistakes in here that people were catching. So it should have I wish I would have found a few people who were experienced in this process that could have done some beta reading for me. Because I just read what should be there. I don't catch everything. After 10 times of reading the same book, I just know what should be there in my head. And so I don't see the little mistakes.
Right. Yeah. I belong to a critique group that has 6 members in it. And I know exactly what you're talking about. If you don't have a different set of eyes, ones that are not intimately connected to you, like family and friends, because you can read the same paragraph, the same sentence, the same chapter a dozen times, and your mind is plugging in words that either are missing or shouldn't be there, and it's like a self-fulfilling thing. So yeah, that's pretty good advice, and I think that's that's very important. Get somebody else to look at your work that is unvarnished. And I think too, going back to what CJ said about having a thick skin, you definitely do have to have a thick skin as an author, whether you've written one book or a dozen or 1,000, because you're never going to be perfect, and you have to be able to take constructive criticism when it comes to your work. And I learned that the hard way, but that lesson was well learned. Take constructive criticism as the word indicates. It's constructive.
I know one thing I've learned over the years is I have what's called Voice Dream Reader. And so to alleviate what Mike was talking about how your mind puts a word in there, I literally follow along as the reader reads it to me. And so sometimes I will inadvertently flip 2 letters within the word. And so it sounds funny. And it's like, wait, what was that? And so I have to go back and fix it. And that allows me, like I have the Word document and I have the reader going at the same time, and I'm following it along on both. And that allows me to visually do that. Plus, another thing we do is my husband and I read through it. I will read it out loud, and he will read it with me so we can check the flow. And then we send it to a copywriter and a content editor separately. And then I redo those other 2 processes over again. So it is thoroughly scrubbed before it even gets up there. And you have to have a brutal editor. Like mine, she's talking over my shoulder, like, why did you do that? Or like that doesn't even exist yet. You need to go with my historical, the time travel one. Like that doesn't exist yet. You need to check that. Or if you can find a brutal editor, it's better if you find a brutal editor as opposed to reviewers telling you that. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So Dystopian.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say that's what I tell my publisher is that I don't care if it's one mistake. If we know it's there, it needs to be fixed. I don't want to because I've seen readers up in an uproar over grammatical mistakes or spelling mistakes. I'm like, no, we need to make sure the content is exactly what it needs to be before readers spend money on it. So that's key to me.
Yeah, and copy and content editing are 2 different things. The copy is my famous thing that I'm kind of infamous for is the word that. So I've learned that over the years. So I will go through after the document is done, and I will put that in the search engine, and I will literally go through each and every single one. And if I can pull it out of that sentence, I pull it out. So learn your habits. And then content editing is the person's hair blonde, then in the beginning, and is it still blonde in the end unless they colored it? Is it still blonde in the end? And that's that's the difference.
And I would say that regardless of how you get your book vetted, whether it's with a family member, a critique crew, professional editing, the thing that I have learned, again in not so easy way, is that the author's voice, what your voice is unique to you. And so different people had come from things from different perspectives, including content editors. And you should never let your voice be, if it looks, sounds, and reads the way you want it to, then that's the way it needs to be, because that is your voice. And one of the things, when I joined Writers Organization years ago, one of the founding members was Jory Sherman, who's been passed away for a number of years now, but he was a famous Western writer. He'd won lots of awards, and he actually wrote a number of books on writing and editing. But one of the things he said, which was passed down to me via some of the other members, was this: it's your story, okay, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay if you know the rules. It's okay to break the rules. So if you know the rules, it's okay to break the rules. So if you've got a passive word, or if you've got something that's a gerund, or you've got a sort of slang that sounds differently than what other people say it should be, and I'm using examples, then that's the way it is. If you know the rules, it's okay to break the rules, especially if it's related to your voice as an author.
Yeah, you have full creative license. Your editors or critique people, whatever, can suggest something, but it's your name that's on that book.
Right. And I was just saying that, Savvy, because when you start out as a young author, it's almost like, because this is the way it was with me, and it could be different with you, and maybe it was different with CJ, but you slavishly follow what others have told you to do because you feel they must know better than I do. And they probably do 95% of the time, maybe even 99% of the time. But as you become experienced and you grow as an author, you'll find that there are things that you want that's part of your story that don't need to be changed just because somebody else thinks differently.
You're right. I had a really amazing content editor, and there was a lot of things that he said that made me reevaluate, not necessarily change, but reevaluate and maybe rework the way that I did it. But there was one particular little snippet where they find a dog covered in mud, and I described the dog as being covered in mud and fleas because he's been abandoned in this city, and the little girl runs up to it. She wants to keep it and kisses on the head. And he said, I think you should take that out. He said, that's disgusting. And I said, really? You don't think a little girl who hasn't seen a dog in 9 years wouldn't be overjoyed and wouldn't just instinctively kiss it on the head? And I said, with respect, I mean, you don't think that's believable? And he said, I went back and read it, and second thought, you convinced me. I think she would. So I kept it in the story. So but you're right. I was like, okay, here's the professional. How do I disagree with him when I'm a new author? So I had to try to think about the fact that, no, I feel like she would 100% do this. So we kept it in the story. So
one thing to do is to find an author or two or three or whatever to be like a mentor. Mentors help. I have a few authors, friends of mine, who I consider mentors, and they will come behind me. If I have any questions, they'll be like, yeah, you could probably leave that there, or maybe want to consider a different route. How about this instead? So if you have an author to bounce ideas off, it's different than the actual like a publisher. And this is from a publisher perspective, because I can tell my author stuff and they may not follow it, but my name's not on there. However, it's something questionable, our brand is on there, so we'll back it. Just putting that out there. So, you are the author. You have the final say. That is your book, baby. That's yours. So whatever it is, whether it was a dream, whether it was something that happened, whether it was a song or something, whatever triggered that storyline in your brain, that's your story. There are basically 7 storylines in the world, and each author has a different perspective that brings that they can tell the different storylines. Mike and I were part of the Underground Authors. We did an anthology, Under the Sea, and all we were given was this picture, and there were 12 authors. Mike,
12? I think yes, because I think I was the 12th.
Okay, there were 12 different authors, and with just this one picture of a boat on the shore, there were 12 completely different stories that came out of that. So your perspective and what you have gone through in your life and what's in your imagination is something completely different from anybody else's.
Right.
Don't let anybody ever take your voice. I tell people, I'm not in the box. I'm not out of the box. I have kicked the box to the curb and burned it. So that's how I roll. Yeah. And I'm a pantser when it comes to writing. So, it's whatever I feel the story needs is what goes into it.
But I would say, you made the comment about that you were an avid reader and you didn't feel like that had really helped you much as an author. I would tend to disagree just a bit in the sense that as a reader, and I think every single author was an avid reader first. I don't think that there's any doubt about that. But you do get a sense of what you like and what you don't like, and what you like to read and what you don't like to read. And I do think your background as an avid reader, particularly if you have read outside of just one genre, but maybe several different genres interest you, I do think it helps to prepare you to an extent as a writer, because again, you're reading something and you're reading it aloud, or as CJ was saying, back to each, reading it to Trevor or back. I think that does help to prepare you as an author, because you know what sounds right, and you know what doesn't sound maybe a little janky to you, but you do know what you like in terms of the things that you read.
Mhm.
And I do think that ought to be reflected somewhat in your writing.
I think
Although,
reading helps me be a writer. I just don't think it helped me tackle the beast of publication and marketing. I had
well,
no
yes.
idea what this
Okay.
world was
Yeah.
like. So
Yeah.
that's
Good
what I meant
point.
by that. Yeah, I didn't even know this side. I mean, I knew people who help them get books out there, and you've got to put yourself out there, but I had no idea. I mean, I wasn't even on Facebook as of January of this year. I had no idea. Like I have a marketing lady, Katie Cryer and Company. They're helping me with my marketing, and she's like bringing me statistical reports and algorithms, and I'm like, oh, I thought social media was just like icons on a thing that people talk about their food. Like she's bringing me all of these dates and updates and this algorithm, and I'm like, what are you talking about? It was so unknown to me. Reading books and getting escaped in my world didn't prepare me for any of that side of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and go ahead.
So this is your first dystopian novel. Is it a series or is it a standalone?
No, it'll be a series.
Have you got
Go ahead.
I was just going to, have you got sort of an idea of how many books your series is going to encompass, or have you not reached that point yet?
No, I'm pretty sure it'll be 3. When I started it, I had a pretty good idea that it was going to have to be more than 1, just because of how much I have that I want to accomplish with these characters. So I already had a pretty good idea, and I knew. So weird. I had the prologue and I had the ending. I knew exactly how it was going to end. I didn't know what was going to happen between the pages, but I had the prologue in my dream, and I woke up and knew how I wanted it to end. And it was going to end with a pretty big cliffhanger, which I know a lot of people hate that, but I knew there would at least be a book 2 to wrap that up. But I feel like with where I want to go with it, there for sure will have to be a book 3, and I don't think it'll be more than 3. So
sounds like a pantser, CJ.
She does. I cringe when people say that they don't like cliffhangers. And I'm just like, I don't understand that, because if you're watching a show or something, how many shows and movies with the cliffhanger? There's a reason for that. There's a reason that they're numbered that way. It's like, because that brings anticipation. And some people are like, well, it needs to stand by itself completely and utterly. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. It can be an ongoing.
So when I wrote my book, through the whole process, January to whatever, I wasn't on the media. I wasn't really involved in it, reading book, getting with the book people. And then after my book was done and with the editing, and I was just waiting around for all of that, I started getting more involved in book clubs, and I would read, comment, oh, I hate cliffhangers. Oh, don't do this to the main character. And the whole time I'm like, oh, okay. That's everything I've done in my book. I purposely ended every chapter with a cliffhanger. Like, I want you to want to turn to the next page and go, well, let me finish it. So I was like, maybe I did this wrong, because these are a lot of people who say they don't like that.
No.
Now, there are some people who know me well enough by now to know to wait till the entire series comes out before they buy it, because that's the way I write them. I write them as a cliffhanger, because it's not any different than any movies that you've seen where it's like a trilogy. For example, The Hunger Games. I mean, how many cliffhangers were that? Twilight. How many cliffhangers were in that? And so it's like, I don't understand that theory. I mean, my daughter and I are watching Grey's Anatomy right now. Talk about cliffhanger horror. I mean, it is at the end of each season. It's like, are you kidding me? This is how did these people survive the entire summer without the rest of this storyline? And
listen,
so
my husband's a nurse, and his soap opera candy is Grey's Anatomy. And I tell him, I'm like, you're watching a soap opera. He's like, no, I'm not. I said, it's a medical soap opera. Yes, it is. He loves it because they're pretty accurate. He cringes when he watches shows that have medical inaccuracies, because he's a nurse, and so he's like, oh, that's not right. That's not right. So he says that this is the most accurate medical show he's ever watched. So he loves it.
My husband's a retired Navy corpsman, and he retired as a physician's assistant equivalent. And so, yeah, he'll watch and be like, that's right. And I'm like, no, that's not. He goes, but he loves the show. And so he'll watch it all the time. But we just finished season 6. We just started season 7 today. And it is like, I don't understand how they did these week to week. It's like, we can binge it. And so when you're watching something like that, it's like, why can't we end books on cliffhangers? Why can't we end chapters on hangers? I mean, that's what brings you to want to watch the next show that comes out. If each one was wrapped up completely in each show, it would drive you crazy.
I've read
so far, sorry.
I've read where the logic is that people that do the marketing say it makes readers mad when you have intense cliffhangers, because you don't, unless it's a series, as you've said, CJ, and you've got all your books published.
Oh yeah. If it's a
Because
standalone, the story is
Yeah.
inclusive within the pages of the book and the
Yeah.
covers completely. But if it's a series,
but if you're satisfied after reading a book that's a part of a series, and you're left with the satisfaction at the end of the book, and I'm not talking about satisfaction in terms of you enjoyed the story, but in terms of like there's some completion there. There's really no incentive to get the next book, or there's not a lot of incentive to get the next book. So, but I have read where they, marketing experts have said, well, readers get mad if you have a cliffhanger at the end of a book. But I think that really applies only to those kinds of series that are not complete. But
yeah,
I like it. I like cliffhangers.
I've learned to have it out within at least 3 months of the last book if there's a cliffhanger. So they know it's coming. Anything more than that, and that's just mean. But think about this. If people are mad about a cliffhanger, they're going to talk about it on social media.
Talk about it, yeah.
Just saying, just putting it out there.
And then that's what you want.
We have just a few minutes left. We're almost at the end of the time already. Ms. Savvy, is there like one golden nugget that you would pass to somebody who's considering writing a dystopian fiction novel?
Yeah, I would say that. Go for it. I mean, dystopian is fun. There's so much you can do. I mean, it's a new world, though. There's really no limits to it. And then I would just say, just trust yourself. That's something I'm still trying to learn. And if I could pass it on to anybody really writing, but especially with dystopian, there's a lot of people second guessing things and ideas that I had, but just stick to your guns and go for it and enjoy yourself and have fun, because it's a really fun genre to write.
Well, your book, Reset, let me know when you can see it. Reset is just launched on the 15th. You can find that on Amazon. So we have that one. And also, if you're looking for her online, you can find her at AuthorSavvyLoy.com, AuthorSavvyLoy.com. And I have learned that her handle is @SavvyLoy. So you can find her online anywhere. In the meantime, next week, we're going to be talking about how to do book reviews. Each month, we tend to do a book review, Mike and I do. But we're going to show you how to do it. What are the elements that you do it? Where do you post it? How can you post it? And I will actually be posting up a review through, so you can kind of figure out how it is, what it is, because those are presents to authors, and you want to be able to, appreciate your author, because there are days where we reach and it's like, I have certain reviews set aside for those days where I feel like, why am I even doing this? And those reviews will help you carry through, because you're reaching somebody's heart, and that's what you write for. So, well, thank you, Savvy, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you all next Wednesday at 1:00 p.m. Central Time, same place you found us today, either Facebook or YouTube. So until next time, have a good one.